So we're doing this meeting hybrid, so it's a little bit of a challenge, so be a little patient with us. If you could save your questions to the end, Chase is going to do a brief presentation and then we'll answer all your questions. You can type them in the chat as you think about them, or if you want to wait, that's fine. I can always unmute you, or you can unmute yourself and ask those questions. Chase is going to grab the door with Paul.
So it's a little bit quieter.
Yeah, it might lock this. So.
Thanks for leaving it open for me.
Yeah.
Great timing.
Put the thing down. There you go.
So it's a
Anyway,
little bit quieter.
welcome everybody. We're going to talk about the Grand Canal Connection Project. And my name is Laura Kaipas. I'm with the Neighborhood Services Department. Now I serve as your host. And we have Chase Wallman. Chase is a planner in the transportation area at the city of Tempe. Over to you, Chase.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Laura. Thanks for all you guys taking the time to come in person, and thanks for all those joining online as well. As Laura said, I'm Chase Wallman, Senior Transportation Planner with the city, and today I'll be giving an update on the Grand Canal Connection Project. So this project originally came to the public in 2018, and that was when the project was called Grand Canal Phase 1. Hey, Laura. Yeah, but oh, they're coming this way, I think. Sorry about that. Grand Canal Phase 1 and 2 projects is what the projects were originally called. So Grand Canal Phase 1, that project was to directly connect the Tempe Grand Canal with Phoenix's Grand Canal. With that, sorry, I'm very delayed on my computer here. So Grand Canal Phase 1 was to connect Tempe's Grand Canal with Phoenix's Grand Canal. Similar to our North-South project, there were certain requirements imposed by Union Pacific to make this direct connection, which this project's budget could not absorb, and that was an ongoing annual maintenance in perpetuity. So that, unfortunately, this project's budget cannot absorb. So we changed that alignment from the original one, which extended it west and directly connected with Phoenix's Grand Canal, to go north on 56th Street. So this will connect it'll extend this pathway west on Tempe's Grand Canal and continue north to connect to the bike lanes that exist on Washington Street, as well as that continue further north on 56th Street into Phoenix. Grand Canal Phase 2, that was a MAG Design Assistance Grant funded project. So what we wanted to do there was develop preliminary design concepts, get our initial public outreach and public feedback, and then develop a cost estimate so we could pursue federal grant funding for construction. So with that, we looked at 4 different alternatives to connect the Rio Salado North Bank path with Tempe's Grand Canal path. We looked at Priest Drive. We looked at a grade separated crossing over the 202. We looked at using Center Parkway, and we also looked at Lakeview Drive to make the connection between Rio Salado North Bank path and Tempe's Grand Canal. Ultimately, as part of that design assistance project, the preferred alternatives that were identified was this Priest Drive on the west side, connecting Rio Salado North Bank path to the Grand Development entrance, which connects directly to Grand Canal, as well as Washington Street bike lanes and the Priest Drive bike lanes and this LRT station here. And then on the east side, we're proposing to use Lakeview Drive to connect the Rio Salado North Bank path over to the east path entrance of Tempe's Grand Canal. And then finally, the 4th part of this project is another transportation master plan identified project, which we pursued federal grant funding for as part of this project, and that was to complete the connection between Crosscut Canal and Tempe's Grand Canal over here. So I'll go into all of these in more detail, but this is just an overall map showing the 4 different projects that make up this Grand Canal Connection project. This first video we'll talk about is the Priest Drive improvements. We're going to start in the area of Tempe Center for the Arts in the Elmore Pedestrian Bridge, and then we'll move along Rio Salado North Bank towards Priest Drive, and then work our way north along Priest Drive to the Grand Development as well as Washington Street. So what we're proposing here on this west end is where this Rio Salado North Bank path makes the connection to Priest Drive. On the east, where the current east sidewalk is, we're proposing to widen that to 10 feet along the whole east side of Priest Drive. And that would continue all the way to Washington Street, which we're approaching here. And we would do so by relocating the Jersey barrier along the Priest Drive Bridge, and then narrowing some of the travel lanes as well along Priest Drive. We're also proposing ADA improvements for directional ramps to upgrade those ramps, as well as have high visibility crosswalks along those crossings of the 202 that have to be made. So that red line is just showing the rough alignment of that proposed Priest Drive improvement project. These are the existing conditions. These show the current sidewalk, the Jersey barrier, and then you have the travel lanes, the outside travel lane being 14 feet. So as I said before, we'll look to narrow a couple of those lanes, but keep the same number of travel lanes, and then widen that east sidewalk so that it's standard width for bidirectional travel for bicyclists, and then relocating that Jersey barrier to the west to accommodate from 8 to 10 feet. Yeah, like a concrete barrier separating. Yeah, I think it'll come up probably a little bit better in these photos.
That thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This thing, yeah. So this is the existing conditions here. This is a rendering of what that would look like, basically just widening it so that it's a standard width.
It's an
And then
8 feet.
It is, yes.
Is that insufficient?
What's that?
Is 8 feet insufficient?
It's-
You ride over
yeah.
it all the time, it's fine.
Yeah, it's not the standard. The standard would be 10 feet for bidirectional travel. So what we're proposing here is that the bidirectional travel would happen on the east sidewalk. So we're trying to limit the amount of crossings that users have to make. So we're trying to keep everyone on the east side instead of on the west and east side. So this is an area where the directional ramps improvements are, as well as the high visibility crosswalk that we're proposing. And then this next one is that 56th Street connection. So this is on the west end of Tempe's Grand Canal. So I'll be zooming in this video over to the middle part of the existing Tempe Grand Canal. This is as part of the Grand development that upgraded this path. So we have a very small section of the Grand Canal in Tempe. So this video will kind of fly over that existing section. That's part of the Grand development that's being built out right now. And then as we're approaching, we're going west here, and that's a Priest Drive Bridge in the background there. We're about to be at the end of where the existing Grand Canal path ends. So this is where we would pick it up and continue west under the Priest Drive Bridge. We'll continue with a off-street pathway. We're approaching Phoenix's Grand Canalscape here. This is the maintenance road that I talked about before that would be in between the two paths. And then as we continue north, we're going to continue along this old 56th Street alignment. We're proposing on the west side of the street until we get to this cul-de-sac area of the existing 56th Street. From there, we would propose to do a pavement rehabilitation as well as a restriping job to accommodate buffered bike lanes along this section. And this would connect to existing bike lanes that continue north along 56th Street and then east and west along Washington Street. And I'm sorry, this is probably the most dizzying video. I'm trying to, first time driving on Google Earth, and we'll get there eventually. There it is. So this is a kind of a graphic illustration of what that would look like. So on the west end here is the existing path where it says Tempe Grand Canal. We would continue west here, and this will all be a part of the Grand development. This will eventually be built out, but we're proposing across the street here and then work along the south side and west side of this future road that will be built out eventually by the development. So we've been talking with that development to make sure that we're keeping that in mind as we're designing this pathway. So we're proposing to continue that. This is that maintenance road that I talked about. And then as soon as we get to 56th Street, that's when our on-street improvements would start. And that would be the buffered bike lanes that we're proposing. This is a cross section of the proposal for the on-street section. So this would be 6.5-foot bike lanes as well as a 2-foot buffer. This next one is that Crosscut Canal to Grand Canal connection. This is where we're proposing to go in between the First Solar parking garage building and the SRP crosscut facility. So it would connect to the existing pedestrian signal for the light rail station, the Center Parkway light rail station, I believe. So there's an existing PED signal, and then we propose a new pedestrian signal at Mill Avenue to make the connection over to directly connect to the Crosscut Canal. So this video is going to show you, hopefully, there we go. Okay. So we're going to go and zoom in towards the east end of Tempe's Grand Canal, and then you can see the crosswalk there for the existing pedestrian signal. So there's the entrance to the Grand Canal. Then we have this existing signal, and then we would work our way in between the SRP crosscut facility and the First Solar parking garage building until we get to Mill Avenue, where we would propose a new pedestrian signal that would connect users to the existing Crosscut Canal connection over here. And that Crosscut Canal is what continues into Scottsdale. And red line, there it is, okay. This is a view of some of the existing conditions and then another conceptual illustration. So we're currently talking to both property owners here, so this alignment might change, but this is our preferred alignment right now just because of the direct connection over to the Crosscut Canal on the east. So this first picture here on the left, that's that pedestrian signal that exists today for the light rail. This middle picture is kind of the halfway point, so you can tell in between the First Solar parking garage, and then over on the north, you have the SRP crosscut facility. And then finally, this last picture over here, this would be in the area of our proposed pedestrian signal at Mill Avenue. And with this, we're not showing any landscaping right now. We're very preliminary, so we'll come back with 15% design, so you could actually see real plan sheets with the proposed landscaping. But we'll be proposing landscaping and lighting, and then ADA directional ramps as well for the PED signal here. And then finally, we have the Lakeview Drive improvements. So this was on the east end of the project, near where we just were. This is proposing on-street as well as off-street improvements. So Lakeview Drive is kind of a horseshoe that connects on the west end to Washington Street and then on the east end to Curry Road. So with this, there's existing bike lanes here today. We would propose buffered bike lanes for the sections that we could fit it. And then that's the entrance again to Tempe's Grand Canal. And then we continue and work our way over to the Mill Avenue sidewalk. And then as we go south, we have a missing gap in sidewalk in between this Mill Avenue sidewalk and this area of Tempe Town Lake. So that was something that was identified in our original public outreach in 2019, that there wasn't a good accessible route to get down from the Mill Avenue sidewalk down to the Tempe Town Lake area and the Rio Salado North Bank path. So as part of this project, we propose to complete the gap in the sidewalk over to where this existing sidewalk is. And currently there's a staircase here. We would propose a new accessible route to get down from that area up top down to the Town Lake area. This is a plan view of the existing conditions. This is just a rendering of the proposed with the buffered bike lanes and the high visibility crosswalks. And then you have the accessibility ramp. We just got a survey, so we're still determining exactly what that alignment is going to be. So again, another kind of preliminary draft of what that alignment is. We received feedback to get it as close as we can over to the Mill Avenue sidewalk. So that's something that we're going to pursue and get more information about once we actually have a survey available, so we can see what those grade changes and what's necessary to make that an accessible route. This is a rendering of what that would look like. And so those were our 4 connections. And with that, our next steps, we went to our Transportation Commission. We had a meeting at noon today. And so this is our second meeting. We'll have the public feedback open for 2 weeks, I believe, and Laura will go over that, I'm sure. But yeah, we're here today. This is our kind of conceptual stage, so we're going to get as much feedback as we can and then develop our 15% level designs. And then we'll come back in the spring to show that. So there'll be a little more update. You'll see more lighting and landscaping and some of the other elements that we incorporate. With that, we would anticipate having the final plan specifications and estimates in the later part of 2023. And with sticking with that schedule, we would anticipate construction starting in summer of 2024. And that concludes my presentation, and I think we're ready to open up to Q&A. I wanted to thank you guys all for taking the time to come out and all those joining online as well.
Okay, we do not have any questions yet online, so if anyone here in the room.
I have 3 questions.
Well, Kim, have at it.
Because I always ask questions. So in the first segment that you showed where you're connecting to the 56th Street underneath Priest, you show the bicycle lane crossing the proposed road for the new construction that may be going in with the Grand area. Is that going to be crossing the road at surface level, or because it looked like it was going straight across?
Yeah, and I think that's the trouble with the illustration. So hopefully it'll be clear once we're in our next real design phase. But yeah, it would be at the same grade as the road crossing.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Can you
So,
put that picture?
Yeah.
so you're not worried about too much traffic on that road? Is that the reason it's going directly across?
Yeah, so at this point, this is something we've been coordinating. Oh, there it is. We've been coordinating with this property owner on since 2018, kind of fleshing out a design for their future road to make sure that we're not having a conflict with that. So the most recent proposals have been for a new road or driveway over here. So we wanted to make the crossing before that to try to limit the potential conflicts with the new development. So this was the best place for us to be able to cross before we get to what this potential driveway might service in the future. So we wanted to make this crossing before that future driveway happens. So that's why that location was chosen. We also have some grade issues, and we wanted people to cross perpendicular instead of going at a slant here with this road. It's very illustrative, but the road kind of goes at a slant. So that was what our traffic engineering team determined as the best location for the crossing while we were limiting the potential conflicts.
The black road does not yet exist. Right?
Correct.
And the gray path is what you're proposing to put in.
That's correct.
And how close to Phoenix's end of the Grand Canal? I mean, that doesn't look like much of a gap. Will you be able to walk or ride over the tracks and get on that?
Yeah, it'll be like it exists today. So it'll be this asphalt road that you see that connects over here to this path and then connects over here to Phoenix's Grand Canal. So it'll be the existing condition today.
So you could still ride over it. It's just that it will not be a designated path.
Yeah, we're not able to make any improvements to that area. So it won't be an ADA accessible crossing, and it's not a recognized crossing, but it's serviced today as a maintenance road. So we're not proposing to change that.
Okay, so then the other question I have is the crosscut canal path pedestrian crossing over Mill.
Mhm.
Because let me tell you, I've held my breath several times when I've seen bicyclists fly down the crosscut canal path and just fly over Mill Avenue right there, and make that crossing between traffic. I mean, not at the intersection, but right there. So, interesting, yes. So are they gonna hit a light to cross? Because I can't see these guys stopping when they fly down that pathway.
Yeah, so that's
How are
what.
we gonna trigger that?
Yeah, that's what we're proposing here is that it would be a pedestrian signal. So it'll be pedestrian activated, like a push button.
Okay, I'm not kidding. I was there with the park officers one day, and we were both like this as we saw them fly through that down that pathway onto Mill, so, okay. It's at least somewhat of safety, but whether they use it or not will be interesting.
Well, we do have a question from Ira, and then Brian, you can be next. Ira, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself? I see you have. Go ahead and ask your question.
First of all, I've been riding the Grand Canal path for over a year, and the access from that cul-de-sac at 52nd Street to the Phoenix part of the Grand Canal is a piece of cake. So there's no worries there. I'm really happy with the way that part's designed. My question is about the access from Lakeview Drive down to the Town Lake Path. And when I ride, I usually take the wheelchair accessible path up Crosscut Canal because that's a little too steep for the trike that I have. And I was hoping that your switchbacks on that particular path are going to be wide enough to accommodate a trike. And the wheelchair accessible path going up that steep hill on Crosscut, that's perfect. It's really very well designed. They're not real sharp turns, because I've seen some pedestrian and wheelchair accessible paths where I had to get off my trike and turn it around.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. That's kind of the precedent for our accessible route, so we'll be using that as an example, the Crosscut Canal accessible route that you were mentioning. We've developed a few different options. There's some materials that show kind of the harder 90-degree kind of corners. This one's showing the softer. We don't have any developed yet, but we'll definitely take that feedback.
Thank you. I think Brian, you're next, and then Jeff.
Yeah, hi Chase.
Hey, Brian.
To address the lady's question, that was a really good one about on the crossing Mill, and
Yeah,
to address potential cyclists that might want to fly across Mill undeterred. I know it's probably too early in the design process. I don't know. Have you come up with the actual configuration of what that crossing of Mill is going to look like? Because I know a lot of times what we do at City of Phoenix and elsewhere is at the approach to that crossing, you can put a little jog in it, and it makes the cyclist stop or at least slow down before they then cross. You can do that in both directions. If you had a straight crossing, there'd be nothing, especially in the downhill direction, nothing stopping them from just flying straight across. So that, anyway, I didn't know if you had a design for that yet. That's very easily done.
yeah, no, that's great feedback. We don't yet at this time, so I noted the feedback.
Thanks.
And speaking of that, it'd be really helpful if everyone would go online and they actually put your feedback there. So it's tempe.gov/forum, FORUM. We'll try our best to capture what's said, but it's really better to have it on the forum if we can.
You're gonna have the link on the project page
Yes.
for the forum? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it should be on there.
Since we're right there, has anybody reached out to ASU Rowing? I know they use, I think, the drainage to carry their shells down, and that's pretty steep. I don't know that I would want to try and use a switchback carrying a shell, but
Hopefully we'll capture some of that feedback. We're talking to our special events people, staff. So there's a lot of considerations this area is used for, like the marathons and a lot of other special events. So we need to coordinate with them. We haven't done so yet. That'd be another good one to reach out to. So we'll add that to the list to get feedback on.
That's a good idea.
and on moving the Jersey barrier over the 202, I recommended use up more space if we could. Take another foot away from each of the left turn lanes if ADOT's amenable to that. 12 feet, certainly nicer than 10 feet with bidirectional traffic. If we're going through the cost of moving that, which is not small,
Yeah.
an extra foot or two would make a a nicer system for bicyclists.
I have a feeling that we'll probably get some renewed direction from ADOT because of different staff there now. So this is what they approved originally in 2018, but we'll have to do this process again once we have the design. So we'll definitely go for as much as we can get. But yeah, they'll be the ones ultimately deciding. But yeah, we'll get as much as we could get there.
I guess I'm still not understanding the point of widening that sidewalk. If we ride down through the zoo, we come down Priest, we're gonna cross over 202, we're on the west side of Priest. You're not saying we have to come over to the east side of the street to get on the bridge to go over, are you?
I'm not saying that. You can still ride on that west sidewalk, but we want to encourage, we'll have wayfinding signage, so we'll be encouraging the use of the east sidewalk to make that connection.
It connects on the North Bank path much better because the North Bank ends at Priest. And so if I wanted to be from the north side of the river going north to Galvin Parkway or Papago Park, I can see that. Coming south, perhaps coming off the Grand, eastbound down to Town Lake, instead of going all the way over to the Lakeview connection, I could connect down to the North Bank that way. And I think the design recommendations for bidirectional is a minimum of 10 feet. So once you mention bidirectional, it's okay, well, it has to be 10 feet at least.
Right.
Yeah, I think this is the portion that they're talking about. And Chase, I apologize. I think I probably missed your intro when you were talking about that
Yeah,
segment.
no worries.
That is actually my bike route into Phoenix twice a week. And I hold my breath when I cross on the existing sidewalk and I cross the traffic entering the on-ramp. And when I go a few hundred feet further and I cross the traffic coming off on the off-ramp.
Yeah.
I hold my breath those two places. And you know, I get, like you said, that's probably an ADOT decision, right? That's ADOT jurisdiction, how that's configured.
Yeah.
But one thing I notice now about the positioning of the curb ramp on the southernmost crossing for cars that are going onto the on-ramp is if I'm going northbound, I have to turn my wheels considerably to the right to hit the ramp to go across. And when I turn my wheels to the right, some cars, I've not been hit, I've not even had a close call, but I can see it confuses them. They think I'm making a right turn. Now, why I would do that on an on-ramp, I don't know, but it looks like I'm turning right and not proceeding straight across. So if they can straighten out that crossing so northbound cyclists don't have to turn and make it look like they're turning right,
Yeah.
that would be a visual cue to the drivers entering the on-ramp that they would have a little bit better idea of what we were doing.
Yeah, this was probably the most outreach that we got was concerning those on-ramps and making that connection. So what we're proposing was high visibility crosswalks and then some additional signage to let vehicle users know that there's going to be potentially this higher head crossing location and bike crossing.
And I would imagine that
yeah.
ADOT probably won't allow you to create a really tight curb radius going onto the on-ramp, but that would be ideal.
We will find out.
Are you talking with George Williams? Perhaps?
I don't know who our new contact's going to be now. Yeah, okay.
George.
So we have another one online. It's concerning the lakeside Lakeview Drive area. The question says, I am curious if there will be any sidewalk path added alongside the entire length of Lakeview Drive for folks walking or running. I often connect while running from Washington to the lake and back by going up and down Lakeview Drive. And currently I have to run up/down in the bike lane.
Yeah, unfortunately not with this project. It's very tight in there and we have a lot of grade challenges. That's something that we explored in 2018 was adding that sidewalk. So the existing condition today with just the street and then adding the accessible route would be in the scope of this project. I'm trying to get to it so you can kind of see the grade issues that we're having, but it's too tight, unfortunately, to add that sidewalk. It's kind of grayed out. So yeah, unfortunately, it would not be in the scope of this project.
Thanks for your question. Anybody else, Kim? You?
Well, and that's a good point, as, not so much on the, I guess it would be on the west portion of the Lakeview Drive, because I think you've got a little bit of a sidewalk there
We
with
have-
the,
Yeah,
with the switchbacks. But on the east side, I know from hiking in an area and working, picking up trash and that type of thing, there, you do end up walking in the bike lanes all the time. So that would be a definite consideration sometime in the future. And I don't know, what I'm a little bit worried about, because I know street racing goes along on Lakeview Drive, not necessarily that you're gonna get much in the way of bicyclists or runners. From 9 to 2, I think is what the police officers have told me, they've had the biggest problem in that area. But I'm wondering if that's gonna impact any of this. Maybe the construction will, you know, get them to
Yeah.
stop for a while and find someplace else. But I know that's an issue right there on Lakeview.
yeah, that's something we'll talk more with our city traffic engineer as well. She had mentioned that. So that's something that we're gonna look to see what we can accomplish as part of this project to maybe introduce some traffic calming or something that would deter it somehow, but it's.
They've been moving
yeah.
them, is what the ones that they put in right now, they've been moving them, so.
Yeah, and we have the other like special events that we need to consider as well. And there's a lot of uses for this Lakeview Drive, so we'll get into it and see what can be done with that. Any other ones?
I'm not seeing anybody else online right now. Anybody in the room? Any other question?
So we have some printout of the boards behind you guys on the tables, so I'm happy to walk around and talk more about any specific area. If you guys wanted any additional questions that you guys had, we can answer them. But that's it for my presentation. So thank you all for coming and sharing your feedback.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah,
Thanks for coming out.
Guess I'll just leave this slide up for in
Yes.
case.
Oh, I have another question. Ira, did you want to ask your question? Ira, are you still with us?
Yeah, I was just clapping.
Oh. Ira, my eyes are old. It looked like a raised hand. Thank you.
Nice job. I'm really looking forward to this.
Awesome. Thanks for participating.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Feel free to